Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly profound source text, a story that has literally resonated with millions across the globe. We're going to dive headfirst into the philosophical journey of Santiago, a young Andalusian shepherd boy. He's a guy who decides to ditch his comfortable, totally predictable life to go search for a hidden treasure out by the Egyptian pyramids. But as you'll see, this is definitely not just a physical road trip. Oh no, it's a masterclass in human psychology, finding your purpose, and learning to speak the language of the world itself. And when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. Man, that is such an iconic quote. It's delivered to Santiago by Melchizedek, this mysterious old king of Salem, and it just immediately hooks us into the magic of the narrative. It completely sets the stage for everything that follows. It puts forward this deeply optimistic worldview, the idea that our deepest, most authentic desires aren't just random whims. They are actually aligned with the very fabric of the universe. The idea is, when you truly commit to your path, unseen forces actually shift to support you. So, to understand how the universe actually conspires for us, we've got to figure out our destination first. Let's get right into Section 1, Personal Legend, Discovering Your Path. The old king breaks down this specific term for Santiago, the personal legend. Think of it as the one thing you have always wanted to accomplish. It's your absolute true mission on Earth. The text suggests that, when we're young, everything is crystal clear. We aren't afraid to dream big, whether that means becoming an astronaut, a famous musician, or traveling the world. The old king explains that realizing this legend is actually a person's only real obligation. It's not about just paying bills or living up to whatever society expects of you. It's about fulfilling that core, soul-level desire. It's super interesting to compare Santiago, who is out there actively doing it, with a baker they spot in the town plaza. See, Santiago chose to be a shepherd for one specific reason. He wanted to travel. Even if it meant sleeping out in the open and giving up the social prestige of becoming a priest, he went for it. The baker, on the other hand, well, he also wanted to travel when he was a kid, but he chose stability. He decided to buy a bakery, get some money in the bank, and told himself he'd maybe travel to Africa when he's an old man. He postponed his dream for comfort and societal approval, basically because, as the king points out, people tend to think bakers are more important than shepherds. But right before Santiago can truly go all in on his legend, he hits a major psychological roadblock. Which brings us to Section 2, the world's greatest lie, breaking the illusion. At a certain point in our lives, we lose control of what's happening to us, and our lives become controlled by fate. That's the world's greatest lie. Wow. The old man just completely shatters the illusion of fate with this heavy-hitting statement. He reminds Santiago, and by extension, all of us, that humans are always, at literally any point in their lives, capable of doing what they dream of. The whole idea that we are just helpless victims of circumstance, blowing in the wind of destiny with zero agency, that is the world's greatest lie. And recognizing that lie is absolutely crucial. It's the first real step to taking ownership of your journey. If we track his physical journey over time, we can see how it perfectly mirrors his spiritual growth. Santiago spends his first couple of years just wandering the familiar Andalusian fields, learning the language of his sheep. Safe, right? But once he meets the king in Tarifa on day 1, his trajectory just spikes. Within a single month, he crosses into Tangier, Africa. Fast forward to month 11, he is deep in the harsh Sahara Desert, and by month 12, he finally reaches the Al Fayoum oasis. Every single change in his geography forces a massive, undeniable leap in his psychological and spiritual maturity. Now, obviously, the physical journey is never a walk in the park. As soon as Santiago crosses into Africa, he's immediately robbed of all his money. This leads us right into Section 3, Universal Language, Reading the Omens. So there he is, in Tangier, broke, entirely alone, unable to speak a word of Arabic, and pretty much ready to give up. But this crisis actually forces him to learn an entirely new way of navigating the world. He realizes there is a language without words, and he masters it by just carefully observing the physical world around him. Step 1 actually happened back in Spain. He learned to read the needs of his sheep without them ever speaking. Step 2 happens in Tangier. He helps a candy seller set up a stall, and they communicate perfectly despite the language barrier. He then starts cleaning crystal glasses for a local merchant, learning to clear his own negative thoughts in the process. And finally, Step 3, he learns to listen to the profound, overwhelming silence of the desert itself. But hey, the source text totally acknowledges that human intuition isn't perfect. Sometimes our gut fails us. To help him read these omens when things get murky, Santiago relies on Urim and Thummim. These are two precious stones given to him by the king of Salem, plucked right from a golden breastplate. The black stone signifies yes, and the white signifies no. Honestly, we could all probably use a pair of these for our daily lives, right? But there's a catch here. They only work if you ask very objective questions, and the king explicitly warns Santiago that he must try to make his own decisions whenever possible. They aren't a crutch to lean on, they are a compass for when the path is just completely obscured. After getting robbed, Santiago is stuck in Tangier and ends up spending almost a whole year working for that crystal merchant. This brings us to a really fascinating character study. Section 4, Crystal Merchant, the Fear of Success. This dynamic brilliantly highlights the classic standoff between dreamers and doers when it actually comes time to achieve their ultimate goals. Santiago works incredibly hard, innovates by serving tea in the crystal to draw customers, and earns enough money to buy his sheep back. But what does he do? He risks it all to cross the desert. The crystal merchant, however, is a devout man whose ultimate life obligation is to visit Mecca. Yet, he refuses to go. Why? Because the mere dream of Mecca is the only thing that gets him through his miserable, repetitive days. He admits straight up that he is terrified that if he actually achieves his dream, he will have absolutely no reason to go on living. But even with his intense fear of change, the merchant drops some serious wisdom. He introduces Santiago to the concept of maktub, an Arabic word that translates roughly to "it is written." It's this profound realization that despite our free will and despite our constant daily decision-making, we are ultimately connected to a much grander design. The merchant knows his business is expanding because of Santiago, and he knows he can't stop the river of change, even if he wants to. Maktub is the ultimate acceptance of the universe's flow. So how does this grand design, this maktub, actually manifest in the harsh reality of the Sahara Desert? That's what Santiago finds out when he finally joins a caravan heading to Egypt. Let's get into Section 5, Soul of the World, the Positive Principle. While riding with the caravan, Santiago meets an Englishman who is out there studying alchemy. Through him and through just watching the vast desert, Santiago learns about the soul of the world. It's the positive principle that governs literally all things. Everything on Earth, from rocks to plants to animals to our own thoughts, has a soul and is in a state of continuous transformation. When you want something with all your heart, you are literally tapping into this universal soul. You are syncing up your personal frequency with the frequency of the universe itself. I absolutely love how the author takes these physical environments and turns them into brilliant metaphors for human psychology. Look at how perfectly this all aligns. The sheep represent contentment and routine. Santiago's lesson there was learning to move on from the familiar when it just didn't serve his growth anymore. The desert represents the ultimate test of the unknown. Out there, he has to learn patience, observation, and how to read the subtle omens in a really harsh, unforgiving landscape. And finally, the oasis represents refuge and the present moment. It teaches him that life is a grand festival happening right now, even with the very real threat of tribal wars raging outside its borders. And that ties perfectly into this incredible piece of wisdom from a camel driver Santiago befriends on the journey. At this point, the caravan is traveling under the constant, terrifying threat of violent tribal wars. Everyone is completely paralyzed by fear. But the camel driver calmly explains, because I don't live in either my past or my future. I'm interested only in the present. He says when he eats, he just eats. When he marches, he marches. By shifting his mindset to embrace only the present moment, he completely eliminates the anxiety of the future and the heavy regrets of the past. This hyper-focus on the present is literally what allows the caravan to survive, and their methodical progress across the desert is just a perfect metaphor for pursuing your own personal legend. Notice the process here. First, you encounter an obstacle: boulders, salt lakes, maybe thieves. Second, you have to adapt. You unburden the camels, you walk a different path, you make a necessary detour. But step 3 is the absolute most vital part. No matter how wide the detour, you always return to your course by sighting the guiding star at night. You adjust for obstacles for sure, but you never, ever lose sight of your ultimate destination. As we leave Santiago, finally arriving at the lush, green safety of the oasis, having survived that brutal desert crossing, we've really got to look inward. This text acts as a mirror for all of us. So I have to ask you, if you were to encounter the King of Salem today, right in your own town plaza, what would he say is your personal legend? What is the one thing you have always wanted to accomplish? And more importantly, are you out there bravely pursuing your treasure, or are you just tending to the sheep, secretly terrified of what happens if you actually achieve your dreams? Take a moment to really think about that. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.